Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of JC Radio and our football talk with myself and Alex.
What's up, guys?
If you, for some reason, didn't know, I'm Cody. So if you haven't figured that out by now, then you really need to go back and watch more things. But had an interesting week in week 4 of the NFL. Again, like the last few episodes, we're going to be hitting really quick on scores for each game. If we've got a quick comment or two on those, we'll bring those up. And then we'll be getting into some player news as well as injuries. Not as many big names injured this week, but there are a couple names out there. A little bit of news here and there on some things, some big milestones hit by people, but hopping straight into scores for the week. Thursday night football, we had a matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. Somehow the Eagles coming out of Green Bay with a win with a final score of 34-27. Really didn't think the Eagles had any business winning that game. Not to say there's anything against the Eagles. They're a good team, but with the amount of injuries they had going up against a team like the Packers, didn't think they stood any chance against them. Somehow came out with a win in that.
Yeah, surprising me.
Divisional match, not a divisional matchup, but getting into Sunday's games, we had a game between the Titans and the Falcons. Titans coming out on top 24-10. Just a quick blurb on this. The Falcons right now are looking like garbage. Like, there's nothing about this team that is working right now.
Which is surprising, because that offense is deadly. It should be deadly.
It should be, but it's not.
It's not.
Had a matchup, this time a divisional matchup in the NFC East between the Giants and the Redskins. Daniel Jones coming out, getting his second win on the season. The Giants now 2-0 with Daniel Jones, 0-2 though with Eli Manning. Daniel Jones getting that 24-3 win over the Redskins. Redskins ended up benching Case Keenum, throwing in rookie Dwayne Haskins, who really didn't look any better than Case Keenum did earlier.
I honestly didn't pay attention to this game. As soon as it was, I think it got up to 17-0 at one point, and I think I quit watching. I can't remember what it was.
Understandable. Had a matchup between the struggling Miami Dolphins and the LA Chargers. Chargers coming out on top 30-10, though that game was a lot closer than it looks going in the halftime. At halftime, it was 17-10. The Dolphins looking like they might not give it away, and then just did nothing in the second half.
It's like they ran out, like the gas tank went empty at halftime is what it looked like.
Had a matchup between the Raiders and the Colts. Raiders coming out on top of this one with a final score of 31-24. Kind of surprising the way both teams had been playing. Thought the Colts had that one. Raiders showing everybody, we're not giving up on the season just because, we don't look like what some people thought we would. We still got some fight left in us. Another matchup between the Panthers and the Texans. Panthers coming out on top 16-10. Probably the most interesting game of the week between the Chiefs and the Lions. Chiefs pulling out a last-second victory, 34-30 over the Lions. At one point in this game in the third quarter, between those two teams, we had 5 lost fumbles in one quarter.
One for a 100-yard touchdown, though.
Yes, one was returned for 100 yards for a touchdown for the Chiefs. Overall, not the Chiefs' best day, but they still come out with the win. Kind of a learning opportunity for both sides of the ball there. We'll see what happens going forward. I mean, the team should be fine, but, we'll see how they bounce back from having a rough day. Probably one of the most shocking wins of the week was the Browns coming out on top of the Ravens, 40-25.
Yeah.
At one point in this game, Lamar Jackson looked like absolute garbage. He looked like the Lamar Jackson that I always thought he was going to look like. It kind of showed what happened when he went up against the defense that was going to give him all he could handle. The Browns, on the other hand, that offense was clicking. They finally started looking deadly. We'll see how they bounce back after a big win. I mean, Nick Chubb had an 88-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, especially who they play. I think they play Monday Night Football again.
Do they?
This week.
Either way, good win on the Browns, especially in the division. They needed that win big. Another surprising matchup was between the Patriots and the Bills. Patriots, of course, coming out on top 16-10. However, the Bills gave Brady all he could handle. They held him to a all-time low in passing yards for the game. The dude finished with 150 yards. And he also missed more passes than he completed.
And he had no touchdowns, but one interception.
Yeah. No touchdowns, one interception, and he went 18 of 39.
Yeah. I tell you what, if the Bills would have had
Josh Allen?
Yeah. One good opportunity, they could have won that game.
Yeah. Honestly, the Patriots are riding on the back of that defense. It's not Brady anymore. He isn't running that team. It's that defense.
Yeah.
And it clearly showed this game. We also had probably one of the more surprising ones. I get the Browns, I've said, was a surprising one, but this one I don't think anyone saw coming. The Buccaneers coming out on top of the Rams, 55-40.
Yeah, my dad was really upset about this game.
I think this was a game to show people that the Rams aren't as good as we thought at the start of the season.
That defense is struggling right
that
now.
Offense is struggling.
That too, but
like once they get going, they're fine, but it takes them a while to get going. That team as a whole right now, things just aren't clicking well.
Well, I don't get what's not clicking though. The pieces are there. So is it the play calls or is it?
I don't think it's that. I think it's just the chemistry. Something about the team right now just is not working, and I don't know that there's anything they can do to fix it. It's just a chemistry issue. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, but if the guys aren't on the same page all the time, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but look at what's happened to the Browns. Chemistry wasn't there, first 2 games, and now it's starting to roll.
But again, the Rams had it all last year. So far, not looking like they've got that same chemistry. We'll see what happens, though. The Rams are still a good team, could easily bounce back from this game. Bruce Arians showing maybe he really is a quarterback whisperer because Jameis Winston is starting to look good.
I'll save my judgment on that just for right now.
Yeah, okay. Had a not too surprising win for the Seahawks over the Cardinals, 27-10. Again, not a huge surprise in that division that the Seahawks took that one. Had a matchup between the Bears and the Vikings. Bears coming out on top, 16-6. We'll talk a little bit more about that game later. I've got actually news both on injury side as well as just some player news from that game. Had a matchup between the Jaguars and the Broncos. Jaguars coming out on top, 26-24. Man, Gardner Minshew is just taking this team, and he's rolling with it. He hadn't stepped in week 1 and hasn't looked back.
He's playing like he has nothing to lose, which in general, honestly, he really doesn't.
Yeah. He's
a backup stepping in for Nick Foles, he's going to lose his job as soon as Nick Foles comes back.
Maybe if he keeps this up, we'll see.
Yeah, it's an argument that he may keep it, but
yeah,
either way, he's honestly pretty good because there was 2 times in that game he should have been sacked for a big loss and somehow made it.
As Leonard Fournette put it, I don't know if there's anything actually in that mustache that's helping him, but whatever it is working. Also on other news for Leonard Fournette, the dude ran for over 200 yards against the Broncos, so good on you, Fournette, because damn, was that a big game.
Yeah, and that's surprising in itself because that Broncos D is known to stop the run.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah, clearly.
Sunday night matchup, not a huge surprise. This game could have gone either way. It was between the Cowboys and the Saints. Saints coming out on top, 12-10. I understand a lot of people thought, oh, the Cowboys think they're hot crap because they've gone 3-0, whipped each team they've played. No. Those of us that actually paid attention to the team knew this was going to be a tough matchup, Drew Brees or no Drew Brees. Teddy Bridgewater is a solid backup, should be a starter in my opinion somewhere. I knew this was going to be a tough game. Could have gone either way. Came down to the last seconds. I'm okay with that loss.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, Teddy Bridgewater could start for Arizona Cardinals or the Washington Redskins.
I think Minnesota needs to get him back.
I don't know if he'd play. I don't know if he'd go back to Minnesota.
I don't think he would, but they should really talk to him and be like, yo, we messed up. Come back.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother thing I could discuss. And Monday Night Football was between the Steelers and the Bengals in that AFC North divisional matchup. Steelers coming out on top 27-3. That's all the scores we've got this week. We've got a couple things going on with player news this week. A couple of those milestones I mentioned. We had really 3 big ones this week. First one being that Von Miller hit sack number 100 on his career. So good on you, Von Miller. Didn't realize he was even close to that number, so that's awesome. Frank Gore, the ageless wonder, the dude who is now 36, just became the 4th player to break over 15,000 rushing yards on his career, which is pretty awesome. Also, Frank Gore is an ageless wonder. The dude's 36, if you didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's 2 years past when Emmett retired, so he's pretty old for his position. Dude's been going, and it doesn't look like he's about to stop anytime soon. Like, he just keeps trucking.
No, he's a solid third down back or goal line back, in my opinion.
He's like the feature back right now in
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Right now he is, but in my opinion, I think he'd do better in like a third down or goal line situations.
And then the last one of those big milestones came for Larry legend Larry Fitzgerald becoming number 2 all-time interceptions, passing up Tony Gonzalez for that second spot. Right now, he's a little over 200 catches behind Jerry Rice's record. And depending how long he decides to play for, he could break that. I didn't think we'd ever be saying that. But right now, Larry just keeps coming back and being like, yo, I still got this.
Speaking of ageless wonders, do you think he can, though?
I don't know.
200, that's a big number.
Yeah, but you see guys get 100 in one season, and I mean, he's still got the rest of this season to go. And if he plays for 2 more...
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. It's hard to say with Fitzgerald because each year it's a will he, won't he come back thing. We'll see what happens with him. The dude's clearly good enough to do basically whatever he wants. So I don't really know what his plans are.
Well, he's also the best receiver on Arizona.
Yeah, he doesn't ever drop the ball because he's amazing. And I can't say enough good things about Larry Fitzgerald. The guy is just amazing. Actually, no, we're just going to go straight into injuries. We only had a couple big ones mentioned this week. There are a couple other ones I'll bring up. The first big one is Broncos, I think linebacker Bradley Chubb tore his ACL, so he's out for the season.
Yep.
And then the other big one that they at least have mentioned on their social media from the NFL standpoint is Mitchell Trubisky did go out in that Bears-Vikings game. I had to actually look it up. He suffered a dislocated left shoulder and a slight labrum tear, I think is what it said. So, not great, but they haven't really given us much.
Which arm? Because I didn't watch the Bears game.
It's not, it looks like his left shoulder, so.
Non-throwing arm?
Yeah, it looks like his non-throwing arm. Still, they haven't really given us much updates on it. I mean, they've told us what the MRI showed, but I'm not seeing anything that says what his timetable is. Some are saying after their bye week, but I'd have to actually look up when their bye week is to know how long he's out. I'd say probably at least a couple weeks, though.
You're forgetting one injury, too. Detroit, T.J. Hawkinson.
That's one I was going to bring up because I didn't mention it on the NFL's page. Yes, Detroit rookie tight end T.J. Hawkinson went out with a concussion against the Chiefs because he pulled off a boneheaded move and tried to hurdle a guy. Instead of hurdling him, dude grabs his leg, rips it out from under him, and his head smacks the ground.
Yeah, he clearly was knocked out.
Oh, yeah. For a couple seconds there, he straight up was asleep.
Yeah.
Hopefully the guy's okay. I mean, he could easily be back in a week. It could take a couple of weeks. It's hard to say with a concussion how long it's going to take.
Well, with him being a rookie and him being so good in that Detroit offense, I would probably say 2 weeks. Just to clear, make sure everything's all right.
He could clear it in a way. It depends how long symptoms last for. This, I think, I don't know about college, but as far as I understand, I don't think he was too injured in college ever. So this could be his first concussion, which means he might be able to get over it real quick, but I don't actually know. Two other ones that the NFL's page hasn't mentioned. Two guys actually taken off by stretcher in the Packers-Eagles game. Both of those from helmet-to-helmet shots. One of them, Eagles dude dishing it out to the Packers. Jamal Williams, he went out on a stretcher. From what I've understood, he's doing okay, as good as you can after taking a shot to the head. That one should have been called. It wasn't. I understand things happen. The other one couldn't be called because it was between two Eagles players. Their linebacker, what was it, Avonte Maddox? I
think it was Maddox on, is it Everett? No.
I don't know. Some dude.
He's a cornerback. Their number one cornerback.
Yeah, that was Avonte. The dude that went out was Maddox, I'm pretty sure. I don't know who took him out, but either way, one of their cornerbacks for the Eagles went for a tackle on the Packers, took a shot to the head from his own guy. He also went out on a stretcher. Hope both guys are okay. It's hard to say when you take a shot to the head what's going to happen. We saw Ricardo.
The eagle on eagle one looked way worse than the eagle on Packer.
Yeah. And again, with a shot to the head, it's hard to say what's going to happen. We all kind of thought Ricardo Lockett was going to make a recovery a couple years ago when the Seahawks were playing the Cowboys, and that was the last game he ever played. Yeah. Not that he's dead or anything. The dude's still alive. He's doing okay, but he can't play football again. Like, that ended his career.
Yeah, too hard of a hit.
So it's hard to say what'll happen there. Hopefully both those guys are okay. As far as like a personal standpoint, they are doing fine, but we'll see from a football standpoint how they're doing after a while.
I think it was you that found out that the Eagles player was the one that went to the hospital and left with the team.
Yes, he did go home with the team, which is good news, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything in the football world. It just means, okay, he was good enough to fly home.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens from there. Again, hopefully both those guys are okay. It never is good when you see a guy take a shot to the head and lay on the ground.
No, but speaking of taking shots to the head.
Oh, yeah. Getting into outside of injuries at this point, just getting into player news, we had our first suspension of the season outside of the whole Antonio Brown thing, because that's not actually a suspension since he's not on a team yet. Raiders linebacker Vontaze Burfict, who, if you watch any kind of football, you know the dude honestly, he's probably the dirtiest player in the league. The dude is known for not being clean with his hits.
Yes. Drops
his head, crown of the head, straight into the Colts, essentially face. Like, it wasn't even the top of his helmet. It was like straight in the face. And it was clear and obvious that he intentionally threw his head there. He is out for the season. Alex, you brought up that they are trying to appeal it. However, this is like, fifth, sixth time the dude's been in trouble with the league for a dirty hit.
I'll put it this way. On the way to record this episode, I was listening to Golick and Wingo, and I can't remember who brought this up. It sounded like Wingo brought this up. He has been suspended 5 times for helmet-to-helmet hits.
Yeah, he ain't getting this suspended.
No.
Or overturned, sorry.
He's not getting it overturned, and he, counting this season, has missed a grand total of 23 games within the past 2 years.
Because of suspensions.
Yeah. That's just 2 years. That's not counting
the
3 other previous suspensions.
To be fair, I mean, last year's was a couple games, but this year's is going to add up a lot to that because, we're only 4 games in, so he's serving 12 of those this year alone. Granted, I guess that means he served about 11 10. Or 12 last year.
It means he served 10 last year.
Yeah. So the dude's been in trouble too many times. Like I said, he's one of the dirtiest players in the league. I don't like the guy. He clearly made that Raiders defense a little better at linebacker, except, when he pulls that crap off.
Well, that's probably why that defense was better, because they didn't want to throw in the middle of the field to injure their wide receivers.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, the dude shouldn't really even be in the league. We'll see what happens after this year. They'll probably talk about things. The suspension could go more than this year, but minimum, he is suspended rest of the year. Some other news as well. Another milestone I forgot earlier, actually. Julio Jones became the fastest player ever to reach 11,000 receiving yards for his career. So props to you,
Surprising.
Julio Jones. I'm not too surprised Julio did it.
I meant with this season.
Clearly he wasn't too far off last season. He just needed a couple 100 yards and he was there. Overall, some other news. Obviously, start of the season, we had 32 teams that were undefeated because everybody was 0-0. We're now down to 3 left. After 4 weeks, we're down to 3 teams left undefeated.
Chiefs, Patriots, and
You're not going to believe the last one.
49ers, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Chiefs and Patriots are 4-0. Niners are 3-0 because they had a bye week. So
I wonder who their next team is. It's got to be divisional.
it might be. I don't know. I'd have to look at their schedule. Again, most of these I don't pay enough attention to. Again, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs breaking records again this week. I'm not even going to look at them because, like I said in the previous episode, I'm done looking at what all records they break because, well, that team just keeps doing it, and I'm tired of trying to keep track of all that
Like
crap.
you said earlier, they broke one that wasn't a good record. The 5 fumbles in a single quarter was a record.
Well, that was a combined. That was between both teams. That wasn't necessarily just one side.
That's true. But you know what? I will give the Lions some credit. Their defense was solid. And whenever I was watching the game, they were talking about how the head coach, who's the head coach?
For who? The Lions?
Lions.
Matt Patricia?
Patricia. They were talking about how Patricia reached back into old football lore and taught them the punch-out drill.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Because,
They were
dear God.
Yeah, they were using that peanut punch to their advantage. If you don't know what that means, it's just a term coined by Charles Tillman, who was known as Peanut Tillman, because, well, he got really well known for just punching out the ball.
Yeah, and by God, it worked. I think they forced at least 6 drop balls, or some of those were for fumbles too, though, out of wide receivers and running backs in that game.
Oh, yeah. Just as a quick heads up, after 4 weeks, your divisional leaders in the AFC North, we've got the Browns technically leading at 2-2. The Patriots leading the AFC East clearly at 4-0, with the Bills just 1 game behind at 3-1. The NFC South is currently led by the Houston Texans at 2-2. And the AFC West is currently led by none other than the Kansas City Chiefs at 4-0 with a 2-game lead over anybody else in that division.
Even the Chargers?
Yeah, you had a 2-game lead last week because they were 1-2. Now they're 2-2.
Huh.
And the NFC side of things, the Packers run the NFC North at 3-1. The Saints run the NFC South at 3-1. The Cowboys are running the NFC East at 3-1 as well, and then the NFC West is ran by the Niners, technically at 3-0.
What division do you think? What leader out of those divisions do you think is the most worrisome?
For who?
Who could be upseeded?
Who could be upseeded?
Yeah,
The Niners.
I can see the Niners might.
Also, I mean, honestly, the AFC North and South, honestly, either one could change as well.
See, I think the most interesting one after this weekend is I can see the Bills going into New England and causing some problems.
Oh, yeah, that was another injury I forgot to mention. Bills quarterback Josh Allen went out in that game with, I believe it was a concussion. All I saw was head injury, which pretty much leads me to believe probably a concussion. So we'll see what happens with him. Overall, I don't know. This week was a weird one. In a lot of ways, if you watch the games, there were things were just weird on all ends of the ball in like every game this week that I watched. I don't know why. I think it was just one of those weeks for some reason, but yeah.
Well, I told you earlier, did you read that article on ESPN that I cannot remember who published who's the writer, but he came out and talked about the undefeated teams and the leaders of the division and like how they showed their weaknesses. And
I heard you talk about that. I haven't watched it.
It was interesting because obviously the Chiefs is the defense, but then as you stated earlier, the main reason that weakness for the Patriots was the offense.
Yeah.
They didn't think
It shouldn't be because they've got weapons galore, but Brady's old and he's finally showing it.
Well, he contributed to the line as well, though. He thought the main reason was the offensive line.
No, that
I didn't agree
offensive
with
line is. I mean, it's struggling a little bit, but it's not that bad. Like,
Yeah.
Brady missing 21 passes was the problem.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with the line when you miss 21 throws.
Well, and all quarterbacks this week struggled anyway. Like you stated, Lamar Jackson struggled against the Browns. Brady struggled against the Bills. Patrick Mahomes struggled against the Lions.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily...
I think it was just a weird week.
That too. Because Patrick Mahomes, he had passes to wide open wide receivers.
Yeah,
and
he was
just overthrew.
Yeah.
It just seemed like the timing was off on everything this week.
Another player news thing. We don't really have much about Antonio Brown this week, surprisingly, unless you want to count the fact that he's getting into Twitter feuds with people, but I don't really think that's newsworthy.
He did ask for help to write an English paper, and a lot of college students trolled him for it.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty good. But other big news was that in that Vikings-Bears game that I said I was going to mention earlier, one backup quarterback, Chase Daniel, ended up getting them that win because Mitchell Trubisky went down in the first drive of the game.
Yeah.
And Adam Thielen, wide receiver for the Vikings, after the game, more or less called out Kirk Cousins and said, "You suck." Like, that's not his exact words, but more or less that was the gist of it. He came out and was like, even if you run the ball for 180 yards with the best running back in the league, you still have to be able to throw that deep ball, and we're not. He's like, we come in here and bust our butts every day to get better, and we're frustrated. Like, Stephon Diggs left the locker room in his pads so he wouldn't have to talk to people because he was so pissed off.
Yeah. Like you said, I bet Minnesota's kicking their butts for not bringing back Teddy Bridgewater.
I thought they were stupid for ever signing Cousins the way they did. They signed him to a fully guaranteed contract, which was stupid because Cousins never showed he should have deserved that. And they went from a 13-3 team with Case Keenum to 8-7-1 with Kirk Cousins. That was a step backwards.
Yeah, but Case Keenum wasn't the answer either.
He was better than Cousins.
He was, but honestly, I don't know why they paid him that guaranteed $40 million.
It was
100% guaranteed.
Yeah.
But
stupidest contract I've seen recently. Like, there's been some dumb ones. That one I was like, y'all already messed up. Like, I don't even need to wait to see this pan out. He is currently, 4-20 something, I think, against a winning team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his record against a team with a winning record is god-awful. And yet, all they looked at was, he puts up really good stats.
Yeah.
In garbage time.
It shows the ignorance of front offices, in all honesty. But, I'm kind of with Stephon Diggs and Thielen. Because there's no reason. The Vikings, if you look at them on paper, are probably the best rounded team in the NFL. Be.
They have a top 5 defense. They have one of the best running backs in the league currently in Dalvin Cook. They've got 2 of the best wide receivers in the league. I mean, I can't say where they'd rank because, it's hard to rank all the top guys.
I would say the best combo. The best 1-2 combo.
I'd say that. At least one of the best 1-2 combos. And then you've got a really good tight end in
Is it Kyle Rudolph?
Yeah, Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Was about to mix him up with Mason Rudolph. Too many Rudolphs, even though there's only 2. Yeah, Kyle Rudolph.
And a tight end.
So, I mean, the offense alone is there. The defense is there. The problem is Cousins.
I can't argue against that.
Honestly, I think a lot of people think they should get rid of him before the contract is up, but it's not going to do him any good. You might as well just bite the bullet and have a crappy season again with him next year because you're still going to have to pay him.
Yeah, you're going to have to pay him. There's, honestly, if you want to draft a quarterback, there's not that many to draft from.
They're not.
Like, think about it. You got.
I don't watch college, dude.
You got Trevor Lawrence.
He's not eligible. This is only his second year, dude.
This is just me telling you the quarterbacks that I think could actually do anything.
Oh, yeah. Trevor Lawrence, they still have to wait on.
Bailoa,
he's available. What about Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is available.
So Jalen Hurts and Tua are both available. Trevor Lawrence, if they're wanting him, they still have to wait another year.
Yeah, but in my opinion, he's not not ready. There's no way. He can throw it deep. That's about all he's got.
Yeah. Well, he's still got a while to develop. We'll see what happens college-wise with the quarterbacks out there. But, I mean, as far as NFL goes,
But that's
they
even
need to
if
get
they
rid
have
of Cousins.
That's even if they can even get to him, because those are going to be two that are going to be taken quick.
Well, it looks like they're going to be picking quick. Like, they're not looking good with Cousins. Like, last year, Adam Thielen went most games ever to start the season with 100 receiving yards. Last week, he had, 6.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And
so
Stephon
far this
Diggs,
year, he's
Stephon
caught
Diggs,
13 passes for 100-something yards. Last week, that was a single game for him.
Yeah, and also think about this. Stephon Diggs, your Minnesota Miracle Man, to get him into the playoffs.
Okay. Yes, it was great, but I wouldn't put that on Diggs. I'd put that on that New Orleans defense effing it up.
Okay. Either way, I'm giving it to Diggs for my argument because what has he done since? And that's not on Diggs.
Well,
Diggs
he was
has
good
been
at the
open.
end of last season.
Not really, because Adam Thielen, I think, has outshined Diggs the past two seasons.
Thielen started that way because, again, I had him in fantasy last year, so I had to pay real close attention to those Vikings receivers. And at the start of the season, Thielen was the one that was hot. And then for some reason, out of nowhere, Kirk Cousins starts going to Stephon Diggs all the time instead of Thielen. Out of nowhere. And I'm like, what the heck, dude? Like, why did you stop?
Well, probably because double coverage.
Kirk Cousins sucks butt.
That too.
I don't like Cousins if you couldn't figure it out. Not as much as I hate Brady, but just from a player standpoint, he's not good. He doesn't deserve the contract he has. I think they need to get rid of him. But they can't afford to get rid of him because you're still going to have to pay him and somehow pay somebody else.
Yeah, $40 million in salary cap. Just think about that.
I don't know. Otherwise, there wasn't really a whole lot else that happened this week. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of big player injuries. We had the one suspension. AB was somehow relatively quiet this week unless you pay attention to Twitter, but that's not really newsworthy stuff, even though the NFL keeps reporting on it.
You know, I'm ready to let him just go off into the distance.
Yeah. But I think that's pretty much all we've got this week for NFL news. I don't really have anything else. Alex, did you see anything that was really worth talking about?
Just that it's going to be interesting to see the AFC East in the future, just with the Bills and the Patriots. I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to play out.
Jets, I'm sorry, you had the pieces there, and, well, you're down to a third-string quarterback.
Yeah,
so,
man. Although Sam Darnold, what is he projected to come back week 6? Is that
dude, I don't
what
know.
they were saying? Like, if
it's a possibility, but it's hard to say with mono how long you'll be out.
That's true, but as soon as he comes back,
they'll look better with him.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to win. I don't think they'll be able to win out and
but they'll look like a better team. Yeah, sorry, Jets fans. Like, it looked like an exciting year, and then, well, everything fell apart.
But you're going to be dangerous next year.
Yeah, hopefully. And if Sam Darnold makes those leaps and bounds like they're hoping, you'll really look good next year because that team's it's a solid team.
But for picks, we are not counting last night's game.
Oh, yeah. For those of you that have been keeping up on our polls, John forgot to vote between the Steelers and the Bengals, so that game got thrown out.
So that leaves everybody's record. Cody's
currently, John and myself are 5-5. Alex is 3-7.
Yep.
So
I've been going against the grain, trying to catch up.
Yeah, it's kind of working. Again, a lot of season left. I mean, 5-5 and 3-7 might sound good or bad, but we're 4 weeks in. Like, we still got a lot to go. But I don't really have much else this week. I think, Alex, you've pretty much said all you've got to say. This is JC Radio signing out.
Peace.